Hi, everyone, and welcome. I'm so excited that we're here. I know that some people we will join soon. I Let me see if I can do this. One second. Okay, so um, all right, yeah, I think we're good. Just a couple of things. Know that you don't have to. I turned off the screens and you can communicate with chat, but I turned everything off and I hope you can hear me. If there are any technical difficulties, just let me know. Jen is traveling. She's in Virginia with her family. It usually happens every summer at this particular time, so she won't be joining us. Recording this for posterity, and I'll send the link of the recording later. And what else? You don't have to say goodbye when you leave. You can just unplug and leave. No formalities at all. You don't have to paint. 90 minutes recording time. I will open the session. I will stop the recording and then open the possibility for engagement. But again, I want to make sure that this is as non-committing and easy as possible. I'm super excited today because I've been investigating and asking and reading about how rigorous our palette and our process is and how we can optimize and improve our oil practice. This is I'm gonna be what people call nerding out a little bit. Um, Perfect, thank you. So it's a bit of not for beginners, I guess, but if you are just like joining for the first time, it's still hopefully um, usable knowledge. But I mostly do this for myself because I always try to improve my practice. It's good to be on top of what materials other people use, what techniques and what approaches. I always want to better my practice and make sure that at least I'm knowledgeable of any other options that are out there. And this week I basked in the science of art supplies, specifically oil painting. And just for you, I want to make sure also that I am putting much more focus and attention and prioritize you guys, just because I want to give you as much value as I can, since you're supporting us, Jen and I, and Roofless Painters to make this possible. And these sessions are very extremely and super important. If you notice, I am just sending things to you first. I put the agenda on Geneva and there are more people there, but I'm going to try not to be as public with precious information to others and make sure that you get the first dips, the most accurate and latest information. So, and I'm just going to switch to let me see. Yeah, I've been working on this piece a little bit in the last few sessions, mostly on the face. I will continue working. And by all means, if you have anything to share or any questions, you can post them. So, uh, yeah, at any point, you can not interrupt, you can interject, you can um, add any comments or anything that you're working on, any advice. Um, we don't have to wait until the recording is over to engage in conversation. If you feel like you need help with ideas, with um, commissions, with approaches, with palette, with color. You have a studio visit, or you have an open studio, and I can do that later as well when the recording is off, but I can also give you bits and pieces now. But yeah, I'm really excited. I'm avoiding the folds of the fabric, but I'm gonna work on this today. But all right, so I'll try to be brief and I won't take more than 10 minutes, maybe less. And so we can get that out of the way. But um, as you know, we've been optimizing and modifying our color palette for years now. And we have found the best, the most professional sort of like the starting palette, the raw pigments or materials. We're not changing that. But I was studying our liquids. I was studying our oil and I was studying our solvents. I have this passion for making materials as non-toxic as possible. And we achieve that 100% with the pigments, with the paint. We've been searching and finding out brands that are certified to be non-toxic. We removed cadmiums and cobalts. I think it's really important and it's becoming increasingly uber important in a toxic environment that we live in. So I really believe that I think it could make an impact. But then we have oil, which is non-toxic, linseed oil, and I'll explain the mixture that we use, which is very professional and that will not change. But there was also always the idea of the solvent. The solvent has always been the last bastion or the last place to take down. And finally, we found solvents in the past that were non-toxic, that were citrus-based. And I will send you the brand, but they were so non-toxic and they smelled so much of orange oil that it attracted bees when we painted outside. I I just love it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. There's something romantic about being the attention of the animal world, but in confidence, the liability of taking a group of people to paint in nature and one of them having bee allergy, and God forbid, I'm not going to continue, but the liability of it all, it's just made it not. I'm just showing you behind the scenes, not a good fit. But and also, I'm looking into how can you improve your practice when you are painting indoors, and you are in a small room. And to be honest with you, the fumes of the citrus oil could be really um, unbearable to cope with if you don't have the possibility of air or ventilation. So there were many reasons why the non-toxic approach of that solvent didn't work. But there's some other new things. And also there were some lavender-based approaches that were very expensive. They didn't work for us because we use solvent every day and we pour it, we discard it. So I found this product that is amazing, that it's not expensive and it's easy to find. Blake had them, had many bottles, and I'm just putting it right here. So this is prime information that I haven't shared with anyone yet, but it's a Canadian brand. The name of the brand is called Echo House Neutral Thin number 125. So this brand has different products. They have different solvents, but the Neutral Thin 125 is the one. This is not petroleum based. So this is the most important thing in a solvent. But unlike the citrus based, this has almost no odor. Well, it has no odor, but at all, but it doesn't smell. So this doesn't create fumes and it's safe if you are painting in a small room or it's wintertime and you don't want to open the windows because it's cold. It is safe, it is non-toxic, and because it is non-petroleum based, it is also disposable, which the Gamsol isn't. So Gamsol is fine, and we will probably continue to use Gamsol if we have big groups and we paint outside. Depending on your chemical sensitivity, it's not a bad option. But if you are done with Gamsol or you have a small bottle and you want to sort of like see if you want to upgrade to something non-toxic, highly recommend this. Hypoallergenic. And also the thing about Gamsol that I learned from really professional painters, not that we are not, is the fact that sometimes Gamsol can dull the oil when you apply it. And even though we wouldn't use Gamsol when we finish a painting and when we are in subsequent layers, Some purists don't recommend to use Gamsol at all at the beginning, just because it has a tendency to dull the oil color. So there's not only a technical, I'm sorry, a chemical reason, but also by some crazy purist, a technical reason why we should veer away slightly from using strong solvents. But this is not all, because I'm going like even further crazy, and probably I'm taking too much time. So this is safflower oil. I've used it before. Safflower oil, the quality is better than linseed oil by some people, just because it's lighter, it's not as yellow, and it's very liquidy. Um, so it's a great, so here's the point. Some oil painters are veering away from using any kind of solvents, and they're using only oils. We're not there yet, but I'm just saying that if you want to optimize and upgrade your oil practice, instead of using any solvent at all, you can use safflower oil as solvent, and you use it to rinse it, and you use it to stain it. So the safflower, because it's really light in color, it's a great oil to substitute solvent altogether. And this is absolutely zero toxic, no fumes at all. So there's no reason. If someone comes to us and says, I don't use oil because it's toxic, I will stop them on their tracks, because there's no reason why we shouldn't enjoy oil painting, and not even going into water-based oils, guaranteeing an absolute safe, non-toxic environment there. But so here's another thing about safflower oil. I love linseed oil. I will not change it. What we do with our medium is we mix half. I just made a new batch. I have like regular linseed oil, which is very yellow and very liquid. And then I have stand oil, which is oxidized linseed oil. It's the same, but one has been oxidized, which means like it's been sun dried essentially. Linseed oil is too liquid for me and for people that join the sessions. Stand oil is too thick, and stand oil by itself doesn't dry. It doesn't dry. It just takes decades to dry. So what we've used now forever, that we're not going to change, because it is by purest standards the best. It's half linseed oil and half stand oil, and then we just shake it. I love the fact that there's a bit of a yellowing aspect when you paint. Most people don't notice it, but some crazy purists do. So if you are into this exacting science of oil painting and you want to know the absolute best possible approach that the most professional oil painters use, most people use this combination, but then when you are about to do final layers, people switch to something that is not as yellowing. So safflower oil could be not only the rinse between, to clean color, but it could be the oil that you may want to use for final touches on your painting. People use safflower oil. I've been using poppy oil when I run out of like oil. So poppy oil is also very liquidy, but it has a bit of a tint. Um, I don't like it as much because it takes a long time to dry. So safflower oil could be what the only thing that you need, and it's cheap when you paint oil. Um, so and to recap, or to do something that it's going to be crazy, this is what I've done and what I'm going to bring to the sessions. Some people recommend to start mixing solvent with a little bit of oil. So in order for us to start making a transition away from Gamsol, away from petroleum-based, and towards something that feels more professionally aligned with the energy of oil, what I've done is sorry, I've put one canister bottle of safflower oil. I put it in this bottle. This is not linseed oil, by the way. I put it in this bottle, and then I use the same measurement, and I added 2 measurements of the solvent. Why did I do that? Well, because I'm crazy for perfection sometimes, and I want to always use the best materials. But I wanted to create a solvent for class. This is a solvent for class, that it's a little bit more upgraded and professional, that it's still very liquid. Notice that this feels like very liquid, but at the same time, professionally, it just um, stays away from pure solvent. So this has 1 part safflower oil, 2 parts neutral thin solvent. All right, I'm done, and I'm sorry. I hope this wasn't too painful on a Friday morning, but I was really obsessed, and I always enjoy how can we do things better for us at Roofless Painters with our practice. I always try to be updated with information as well. It's good for me to know. And we always have to keep up with information. And I think I'm really happy that now we can say with total confidence that we're using non-toxic materials that are also very kind to nature, because anything that we use, we can just dump. We could just dump. Well, not that we do it, we still dispose it safely. Um, but yeah, also, I'm being a bit hypocritical because look what this is kind of like, and I've used a lot. This is pure petroleum, but it's non-toxic, okay? Believe it or not, it's a fascinating story behind mineral oil. It was an American discovery, I believe, and it's incredible. It's non-toxic. What is this for? This is to clean the brushes. I don't use soap. I use this. Um, Never for paint, because this stuff never dries. It just never dries. But it's not toxic. It's not good for the environment, but we will continue to use this as a cleaning. Yeah, this stuff removes everything. Um, all right, well, there you have it. I'm just gonna do the palette right now. I'm gonna try to put that on some sort of document as well. I'm in the process of doing a list of all the materials we used, because I want to be open about it and put it on our website for anyone to see. I really believe in opening up this knowledge to anyone. So I'll put all the brands of paint that over the years we sort of like approached or we use. And as the colors that on Tuesday we painted at Griffith Park, and it was lovely and fantastic. And we still carry, I don't know how we're going to do this. Well, we're going to decide. But we still carry a lot of colors that we barely use. And sometimes people need like, no, we're going to continue carrying those colors. There's no way that I could just get rid of those colors. Anyhow, except for the carbon base pigments with the blacks, the paints gray and some blues. When we finish those, we'll find alternatives. But otherwise, we will continue with the colors. All right, so this is my palette, titanium white, and then I'm using the phthalo blue and the burnt sienna. And when I mix them on the palette, it looks black. It looks black on the palette, but obviously it is not. So it's not giving me that neutral black, but I'm okay with it. As you know, I made the switch to reducing even further some of the colors, and when I dilute them too much, this is what I got. Which is kind of like interesting. Why not? It kind of like personalizes, and it's still monochromatic, but oh yeah, and then what I did, um, I put our mixture of half linseed, half stand oil, which is what we regularly use and we will be using. And but I'm using now this mixture, and I can tell you it's amazing. You will not notice the difference between pure solvent and solvent with oil mixed in it. And it's going to improve your practice, and it's going to make things. This is not the label of the product. It's only a mixing bottle. And notice that everything that I buy right now, it has to have this on the label, this AP. It's a certification by an independent lab um, that some brands hire outside of their own lab. And it's a recognized symbol. The AP means that it's non-toxic, and it could be used by children, which uh, yeah, that's all the pigments that I use, all the paints that we use, they have this independent certification. So I know that if I get paint on my, including the titanium, by the way, because everyone has opinions about titanium white, but they're not using, and the pigment is mineral and it's not micro, whatever the word is. It doesn't go through the skin. So I know that when I get paint, every time that we paint, I get home and my hands are full of paint. Um, I need to make sure that nothing that is on my skin is toxic, because it gets covered sometimes. And now I know it's not. So all right, and I'm just gonna go to make the mixture of the black. If you're starting from scratch, if you're sketching, some of you may be working on something else or doing touch-ups. Um, Focal point, decide where's your focal point, composition, how big and where you want it in your format. It doesn't matter how many times we do this, hundreds of times, years. It will always be a challenge to place the focal point in your format in a way that is the best possible option. And sometimes we want to rush through this process because we feel sort of like insecure about the beginning, and afraid. And we don't think about that positioning. And there's nothing more important to make a good painting than thinking about composition. I'm just telling you right now. So I'm just gonna basically use one of these crazy brushes, and I'm just going to mix these two colors. This is what I've been doing. I haven't been working a long time on this painting, but I've made some progress. So, and yes, on the palette, this looks black, inky black. And it's deceiving, obviously, because it doesn't matter what kind of combination of, maybe I should put more burnt sienna. I think this could be a good experiment here, because when I mix colors, I follow two criteria to simplify. If cold, warm, dark, and light. These are my 4 points. And how do I use that criteria? So I make a mixture. If it's too dark, I need to lighten it up, and I can use different techniques for that. And if it's too light, then I need to darken it up. So I always use that as a compass. Yeah, I think that's the word. As the 4 points of my color compass are dark and light, which are opposite to each other, and then warm and cold. Obviously, I made this black and it's too cold because it kind of like gives this greenish tone. So maybe that's something that I need to tweak by adding some more burnt sienna. And perhaps I should just spend some time thinking of the ratios. I haven't, because there's something nice about the randomness of creating a color from scratch. But anyhow, so see, I'm gonna use the new solvent with 1 part safflower oil and 2 parts solvent, and it just feels like water. It feels like solvent. Doesn't feel gooey. It just feels like really nice. So why did I do it if the solvent is non-toxic already? Because I want to start moving towards a less solvent, more oil practice. Um, is there anything wrong with what we're doing? No, there's nothing wrong, but I feel there's a benefit in not using solvent so as water, especially with oil. I feel like, the way we've used it, and maybe we will continue to use. No, we won't continue to use it. We'll just use the mixture because no one's going to notice. But yeah, and I'm gonna start. Yeah, I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start painting. So I we will work on this for the rest of the month. We're approaching the middle of the month, and it's always good to have a piece that you work on more times and then have something that um, you essentially give it one shot. I believe like having different lanes when you practice is a good idea, um, because if you only work on one piece and it's the piece that you want to put more work and time, and you don't have anything else going on, it's going to slow you down. It's going to drag you, and it could feel a bit tedious, and it could end up making you hate the whole process and the painting itself. So you have to be, I feel, you have to have some psychological grit when you are embarking on working on a painting for more than one, two, three, four, 5 sessions. Um, you need to be aware of the traps, and you need to be aware of not getting caught up with judgment too much, because you're looking at the work for for so many hours, and it is always improving and getting better. But because you're spending so much time, you may feel the opposite. So pairing work on one piece that may take longer, I find in that something really positive. And you should always have a painting that you are working slowly, and at the same time have something that you're working faster. A sketch, an oil study, a small painting, do a postcard for a friend and mail it. Um, yeah, get a sketch, a small sketch. If you find the practice of like sketching on a sketchpad too time consuming, it could be something punctual, something quick. Do a collage, something fast. But I find like always having two uh, lane or speed lanes is always a good idea. At the same time, if you only work quickly and you only do sketches or quick oil studies, and you don't have a piece that you're going back to over and over, um, you're not going to create something substantial. Maybe that's a bit negative, but I'm going to try to find another reason. You're going to put yourself in a mode where nothing feels permanent or uh, as heavy or with weight. Yeah. And then you may have like an open call, or you want to show your paintings to someone who is interested in something, and you will not have a spectrum of work that feels quick and fast combined with something that has a lot more weight and more of a gravitational force. So always, if you can, because we're fighting against distractions more and more. But if you can, always have a slow lane, have a piece that you're working on for a long time, whatever amount of time, could be months, but try to stretch the work longer. It will be beneficial for your practice, for your way of creating, for your body of work, for many things while you work on something like super fast. Maybe you want to do a sketch of the same painting. Maybe you want to start the same painting, but as a sketch and not develop it any further. How many times we've seen work in museums where the artist has done sketches of the work at the beginning and then the formal painting. But sometimes the artist also does sketches as the painting goes forward. So um, I think it's always important to have like different speeds. Um, I Here's also not a confession, but a private thing that I would not mention on my emails or on the classes. But every year in June, beginning of July, there's this publication called New American Paintings. It's been around for a very long time. It doesn't have the same influence that it used to have, but it's a big deal. And it's nothing more than a catalog, and you submit work without any resume attached, which I like. You submit work, and it's a paying submission, I have to say. And then they bring in excellent curators, always. So the curators look at all the work and they select a handful, and then they ask for your resume when you get selected, and then they publish it. It's like a catalog, and it used to be not anymore. I have to say things. It used to be a great source for galleries to discover new people. And I'm talking about pre social media and digital era. Obviously, it just became a bit obsolete. It doesn't have the same function right now, but it's still cool. And I've been submitting for the past 12 years every year. I was selected once, um, and I've said this a few times. This is not a secret, and you probably have heard me this, and I'm sorry I'm repeating myself. But of all the decades of publications of New American Paintings, there was only one issue that was never published uh, because of COVID. One single issue that was never published. Well, guess what? That was the one that I got selected in. So anyhow, it just stung a little bit. It's okay. But my pride, my stupid pride, which we all have, why don't we accept we should all do a bit of shadow work. Um, um, I'm into doing a bit of shadow work and recognizing that, there's ego and pride in all of us. So I felt that that was not a full win. It's a silly, it's a silly approach, right? Because, who cares, number one, and it doesn't matter. But, that pride that we all have just felt like, it wasn't as I didn't score 100%. So I had to submit again. So, anyhow, I've been submitting, and this year I wasn't going to do it because, all the month and a half that I've had, I wasn't up for focusing on anything, and I didn't have work that I felt was uh, weighty. I'm going to use the word weighty enough. I don't know if that exists, but I didn't feel the work was weighty enough. It was very light, and it felt a bit too light. It's something that I feel most of you, because you've painted a long time, and if not, the practice will get you there. You will be able to recognize when one of your paintings has weight or it doesn't. And that is completely different to the feeling that one painting that you have is good and one it isn't. And let me explain. You may feel like you have work that is strong, right? Or it's good. And you feel really proud of it, and you feel like, there's something about it that feels really cool for many reasons. Maybe because you've heard that people like it a lot, or maybe because you sold it. That has nothing to do with how weighty that work may or may not be. You can have something that feels really good and beautiful and well accomplished, but not be a painting that has enough gravitational force to undoubtedly become something that arrests people's gaze. And how do you find that? Well, sometimes is I hate to say this because I hit that criteria. Sometimes is scale. Sometimes it's the complexity of your composition. And sometimes is the idea that that painting conveys the message that it took a very long time to paint or to be created. You can be in front of a painting that is small, that compositionally is very simple, and that it took you no time, and be absolutely extraordinary. But when you are presenting your work to someone who's never seen it, or you're submitting it to an open call, it's much harder for someone who doesn't know you or your work to recognize that your piece has enough gravitational pull to be selected. And I hope that made some sense, because that's another reason why you should be working. We should all be working simultaneously on paintings that have gravitational pull. I wouldn't say large because that's an obstacle for most of us, but with enough compositional complexity and with enough idea that conveys time. There's something about standing in front of a painting that has that gravitational pull that makes you not question it. You know how I know this by experience? Because of the National Portrait Gallery submissions that we've done in the past. You see the catalogs, and some of the selections are totally wild cards, and they're mostly people that are well known, and they're members of the Royal Academy or people that are uh, acknowledged as artists, and they do a stupid doodle, I'm going to say it, and it gets selected. Okay, it's almost annoying. There are some wild cards in those selections, but for the most part, the work selected and featured has an enormous gravitational pull. It's work that it's been well studied. It has complexity in its composition. It conveys the idea that has been worked for a long time. And that creates such a statement that the work, it makes the work impossible to be ignored. And I feel like take that abstraction and think of it for a second. How many pieces of work do we have around us that make it impossible to be ignored? It's not a question um, that requires an answer. It's just sort of like an open question for us to think. I'm doing the ears because I have to. I hate doing ears. Um, Reflect on that, and you know, hopefully at the beginning of this session, I was able to convey my passion for improving um, the oil practice. I'm always trying to, I don't want to be um, in the back of the bus. I want to be right in the front of the bus. I want to sit next to the teachers. I want to look at the driver and I want to see the scenery. I want to be the first one to see when that curve loops around the hill and it's about to overlook the ocean. I want to be the first one who sees it. Um, so um, uh, I've always used that as a driver to improve my painting, my practice, the materials that I use. Um, so I want you to convey that same idea and put it into your work. The same idea and put it into your work. And as artists, the frustrating part is that we're always supposed to demand of ourselves more. And it could be exhausting. And that's why some people give up. But it is always this idea of combining. I'm not talking about feeling always unsatisfied with the work, because if you take it to an extreme, then it could make you feel like your work it's not strong enough. But find a balance between being disciplined to create a certain level of an output, and at the same time do the best you can with how that output looks like. Gosh, this sounds like a terrible thing, but yeah, no, I think it's always good. Anyhow, so I submitted, and I submitted work that we've done this year. Some of the pieces that I felt they had a bit more of a gravitational pull, but it was an exercise in honesty, to be honest with you, because I was aware that I was submitting just because I've done it every year. Also because of that tiny sort of like ego thing that always says, no, you need a full, you need to score 100%. Um, but it was also um, the honesty of looking at the work and realizing that the work that I've done this year, even though some pieces I find really beautiful, I need to up the gravitational ante, whatever that. Um, so maybe just start a piece that has a different composition. Size for me, it's never been it's never been something that I consider a criteria for many reasons. Um, I've always felt that there's always I've seen it in myself when I was in art school, and I mean I was um, in my early 20s. I don't know how formed my frontal lobe was at the time. But there was a fierce competition. It was just kind of what you can imagine in any kind of like reality show. It was always like I am the best and I'm the most out there, and scale was always something that became part of it. I remember going in Barcelona. It doesn't happen anymore, not because I'm not there, but in Barcelona, at some point it was easy to go walk down the street at nighttime and you would find furniture so easily. I don't know why, but beautiful, beautiful pieces. Gorgeous. I never, in the places that I lived in Barcelona, I never bought furniture. I've always, um, except for uh, kitchen essentials and beddings and stuff. But everything else, it was all found. Um, I used to go out with my friends, and after going out, I used to walk, and if I would find doors, like doors, I would grab them I would grab doors and then take them to the studio practice in university and then paint on them just because it was cheap, it was free, and it was big enough. And flat doors, I wouldn't. Um, and I remember doing a triptych. I don't know where that is. I think that it doesn't exist anymore. So I collected three doors. Imagine three doors. Look at a door right now around you. Three of those. Flat, cheap. Took him to, I don't even know how I took him to the class, and then put him like vertically, one next to the other. I had like a bunch of easels. It's that late teenage, I can do this drive. And then I worked with chalk on that, and I did three portraits on it. And it was amazing. It was amazing. No paint. It was all chalk because the doors were um, wood. It was cheap wood. It was reddish or dark, and I used white chalk, and then it was a showstopper. I mean, the professors would come in and they were like, "Wow, what is this?" And then colleagues and stuff. Um, but there's that to me that there was narcissism in that selection involved. It was the idea that I needed it to be big before anything else. And I don't believe in that anymore. So size is not something. And I've seen work selected in galleries and art shows that is not big, but it has that gravitational pull that it's indisputable. It is not only impossible to ignore, but it is indisputable. So that's more what I'm striving for uh, right now. All right, so I'm doing the ear, but it's just not having a shape. I'm getting too distracted. So again, an example of what do I do when I do something and then I don't like it. So I'm gonna trim it from the outside. And what I'll do is I create a bit of a paint from the outside. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but that's enough to create a different shape. I also noticed, for example, that I didn't leave enough space between the haircut and the ear. So again, what I'll do is I'll use the oil to trim the shape of the hair and give that ear a bit more space, separate it. So there's always going to be manipulation. It's a little bit better. It's not great, but it's a little bit better. When you paint with oil, you're going to see shapes that they may need some reshifting. I've had, for example, I want to give you a different example because it feels like, I've been a bit too preachy. When I showed my paintings to Gary Gibson, I brought a catalog, we had a meeting, and he had two people there, and I showed my portfolio. I didn't have time to curate it, which is a mistake. You always have to curate your work when you show it, and don't show everything. I just didn't have time, to be honest. I didn't have time. I just brought it. I did a minimal curation. I removed pages that were empty, for example, and I removed some of it. Never mind. I did curate it. I take it back. I did curate the portfolio, not heavily, because what I should have done is buy a new portfolio and put the pieces that based on what he's showing at the store, which some of you will come on Tuesday and you will see, and just put a few pieces. But instead, I just got carried away and I brought two or three portfolios and I showed everything. And it was a good experience. And I was amazed. Uh, he he is an interior, Gary's an interior designer, but he has represented artists and curated shows for many years. So he has an eye for art that he cultivated in his own style, different than any other curator. But what got pulled gravitationally under his eye was work that was underdeveloped and unfinished. Some pieces, for example, they actually were undoubtedly unquestionable. And you know which ones? We did a series a while ago of coffee cups. I don't know if you remember that. Some of you do. Some of you, if you were not part of our community, it's been a few years, but we did a series of still lifes with coffee cups. And I did maybe two or three. And I remember because of the simplicity of that focal point, I remember putting a ton of time into it. You know, one of those things where the painting is going well and it feels like the decisions that you're making are actually improving. I'm using words that I will never use in class, are improving the painting. And then that sort of like puts you in a state of flow where you want to do more. And then as you do more, it just starts elevating the work. I was in that flow and I started putting more and more, and the painting just bloomed gorgeously. The foam inside of the coffee, the shape of the open areas between the foam and the coffee, the sheen of the porcelain, the spoon, the metallic effect, the shadow cast of by the spoon on the tablecloth. I just went all in. And it created something that is amazing. It's just gorgeous because it's unquestionably weighty. He picked that too. So it was an example to for me to I always learn from these experiences because uh, I was observing how he and his team were curating. And I took notes, obviously. So he picked something that I stepped on. It wasn't finished. It was sticky and it has marks of something that I dropped. And it was a full moon, talking about the full moon that happened yesterday, which I hope you stepped out and saw because it was clear and gorgeous. It was a full moon painting that I did at the then Ace Hotel in the United Artists building in downtown LA. And it was a big group. I barely had time to paint. And I only did the painting, the minimal painting required to show the steps. I did a bit of charcoal, I did a bit of first notes, and I did a bit of second notes, but just enough to explain what those look like to the group that attended that session. And that's it. And naturally, there was nothing substantial. But because of it, I think Gary just thought, this is amazing. So he selected it. And he called me this week and he said, hey, someone was interested in your painting. And I said, which one? I have four there. Well, guess what? It was that one. The one that looks terrible in my eye. The one that is just like an example piece. But you just never know. Anyhow, so maybe let this be an example of have work that you worked on and then have work that you've done in 15 minutes. Have a spectrum. Allow yourself to be immersed in something more complex and at the same time have something going on that feels light, simple, superficial, clean, um, almost like standoffishly snob, standoffishly snob, meaning, I did it because I wanted to, take it or leave it. It's good to have this kind of work that doesn't take itself seriously. It shows confidence. It shows that you know who you are as an artist and you're not afraid to do what you do. And that transpires to a curator. Um, so there. I hope this doesn't feel like some sort of coaching or cheap coaching or um, third-rate counseling. I'm just sharing experiences since you guys are professional artists. Okay. So ears feel like they feel like I have to do it type of thing. Doesn't feel like, oh, I'm gonna do the mouth. Mm. It's no, it's like, and now I have to do the ears. Just it feels like we need to rethink the appreciation of ears. Obviously, it just feels like an appendix to the head and something that it has to be done, which it's the worst possible. I don't have any investment, but I need to change that. I need to change that approach. We all have parts of the face that we're like, ah, and I have to pay this. Well, the ears are mine. Flicker your eyes back and forth. This is cool. Actually, this is cool. Flicker your eyes back and forth. Now, for example, now I know that this jaw needs to be. I really enjoyed having this. You know, painting, one of the things that I love the most, one of the many things, is that it gives you game. It gives you game. It's not static. And that's why it engages you. It's not one directional. Um, you look at the subject and then you discover something and it gives you game. So I don't know. I don't know how to expand that, but there's nothing more um, soothing and healing than being entertained with yourself. It's kind of like a visual solitary, in which you don't need anybody. You can just have fun with yourself. Maybe that's coming across a bit dark, but I really enjoy not being with people sometimes and having enough to engage with myself. Well, painting does it, and I think this could be a universal feeling, We don't need anyone to have fun. Just be careful because maybe that's the reason why some painters are so um, socially inept. I wouldn't say antisocial, but there's something about the awkwardness of an artist in regards to being familiar with all the social cues and being fluid enough to know when to use them. It doesn't really happen. Usually artists are awkward, socially inept, and or not having the ability to have enough social cues uh, to play with. So don't paint too much, or maybe just paint. Perhaps this is the time when we should actually just be with us. Actually, I'm gonna be more serious. Maybe this is the time now to be more with ourselves, more in retreat and taking care of our own, looking inward. painting does that, you know. Um, I love how painting challenges me and then makes me frustrated, but then I want to score a win. There's always a part of an ambition when I paint in which I want to better what I do, and then I get challenged, and then I'm like, there's this push and pull that some people find extremely frustrating and they have no patience. And I feel, to be honest with you, I feel like more and more, because patience, it's such an extinct currency, less people are going to go into painting because it's slow. It's not, it doesn't give you instant gratification. It challenges you constantly. You're never going to be fully satisfied. So we are not living in a world where this is valued. Um, I personally find extreme value in that. Value, benefit, um, of healing powers, refuge, um, sanity. Um, I try to always, when I find like something challenging or a subject that it's just giving me problems or I'm not really, and then I get really exhausted, I try to find uh, the other coin of that, which is I'm doing something for myself. I'm taking care of my mental health. I'm taking care of my emotional being. So I always find that positive aspect, even though a painting may just drive me crazy. Okay, this is actually much. Okay, I want to also talk about, you need to embrace, we um, need to embrace awkwardness in our work, because sometimes we have a tendency of be too um, demanding in exactitude. um, Paintings should feel awkward. And that, in my experience, I've noticed that the awkwardness of a painting, and how do I define awkwardness in painting? Maybe things are not fully finished, or sharp edges are not sharp, or things look a bit not proportionate. That's why I never put emphasis in proportion in any time when I teach something. Because awkwardness in a painting creates magic. Um, Awkwardness in a painting stops people. Awkwardness in a painting gives the painting an original quality that's impossible to repeat. So sometimes we become stubborn to erase that awkwardness. We want to make it perfect. And I want to bring up the idea that we are we need to be careful not to be influenced by the cultural approach to sharpness. I think, even though we think we're not in tune with technological advantages. Think of this. In a very short period of time, um, any kind of electronic that has been put out, it's always been about how much more pixels, how much sharper the image is, from TVs to smartphones to cameras, anything that is related to capturing images or displaying images. Um, Movie theaters even, or the IMAX, there's always been this obsession culturally. And it's annoyed me. It's annoying. It is annoying. But the end game is always to make things sharper. And that's the opposite of painting. But if you don't catch yourself processing that thought, you will be pulled in this idea that your paintings need to get sharper, more detailed, more your eye will always gravitate towards artists who do hyperrealism. You'll think that, that's the be all and end all of painting. And I just want you to stop for a second and slow down and think if that's really what you want, or how much of that thought is influenced by this obnoxious and obscene culture to make the image as real as reality. Um, just think about this a little bit, because it has helped me to embrace awkwardness as an act of resistance against this um this I would say imposing idea that an image is not good unless it's sharp. Screw that. No. This is when painting takes more value. Go against it. It is almost a political stand against this unsolicited, obnoxious, cultural reductionist approach to image making. So leave things unblended. Yeah, don't try to find balance between what you want to show and how painterly it looks. That's why I look at Pierre Bonnard and Vuillard as well. I mean, I just get back to those painters, and there's a lot of painters, contemporary painters, that there's a revival in that style, because Bonnard used odd colors, a really dry brush. Vuillard even further, the proportions of the figures in Vuillard's paintings were caricaturesque, they're infantile, they were sort of like not developed. And I think there's going to be more of a thirst by people. I wouldn't even be surprised if Gary's passion when he saw that painting was because he was sick and tired of things that were too realistic. Just think of that as well when you create work. Not everything needs to be lifelike. I think that would be my advice. Okay. We have time. So what am I doing? I'm doing still second notes. I'm working on the facial structure, the bone structure. Okay. What's more important in a portrait? The bone structure or the facial features? The bone structure. Okay. This is like a no-brainer question. Changed my mind, kind of like those situations. That meme. In a portrait, the bone structure is supreme. What is the bone structure? It's the quality of light on the skin that is reflected or that reflects light or the lack of thereof. So think of the skin without facial features. Imagine the face of a person as a doll that hasn't been finished yet. And think of the skin, if we were to kind of like put the skin flat on a flat surface, it would have the same color, right? We all have different color skin, and we are tanned differently throughout the year, but it's kind of like a uniform tone. But the skin is not flat on our face. It is over a bone structure. We have cheekbones and eyebrow bones that are the two sticking points on our face. And there's a reason why they're sticking, because they're supposed to be the protection for our eye socket. So if you smack your face against a glass, you're gonna hit your bones, your cheekbones, and your eyebrow bone first. We're designed this way evolutionary because our eyes are soft tissue and they are precious. And we have evolved to have this protection around our eyes. And that's why our noses are not bony. They're soft cartilage because even though they break, if you smack your face against a flat surface, but uh, they have like cartilage that softens the blow. Uh, Anyhow, there is an evolutionary reason why our faces look like that. But that means also that we should know the anatomy of a face when we paint because the light will reflect differently depending on what sticks out on our face and what recedes. There's going to be more light on these points of the face, the cheekbone and the eyebrow bone. Less light, that means that the skin may be darker around the eyes. Um, our neck is recessed. We make I wouldn't call it a mistake, it's a habit. We have the habit of making the color of the skin, the value of the skin, not the color, the value of the skin, the same as the value of our neck. And that flattens the perspective. It looks like our faces don't have chins, and our necks and our faces are flushed in the same surface. And it creates awkwardness, but it's not an awkwardness that's artistic. It's an awkwardness that shows um, non-knowledge. I don't know if I explain myself. So always look at the skin, the value of the skin on the face, and the difference of that value on the neck, and apply to it. Work on it. If there's a difference, apply it. Sometimes if the light is zenithal light, there's going to be a clear difference. Sometimes it's studio light and it's not going to be as much. Sometimes it's outdoor lighting and it will create more of a softer transition. But the neck and the face are on different planes. The neck is recessed, the face is forward. That creates a different bone structure. Uh, so the bone structure is always something I spend more time on the bone structure here than on the facial features. I'm working on the bone structure of the nose because it's like it's broken now. But I look at a portrait in terms of value. That's why this is such a good exercise, or rather, um, premise. I don't see this as an exercise. Um, Look at the value. The value is more important than the color palette. The value is more important than which colors you're using. And the bone structure in a portrait is always, always, always more important than the facial features. Once you work on the bone structure, then you can work on the facial features. It's like the cherry on top, it's the frosting on the cake. The facial features should feel like you're just finishing up the bone structure with the facial features. What do we do instead? We start with the facial features. We do the shape of the eye. We do that with painting. Of course, we do that with charcoal, but with painting. And then we get stuck because the face looks weird and we don't know why. And it looks flat and it looks childish and it's triggering us and it's confronting us. And then we're like, I hate portraits. And then we're like, I'm not good with portraits. And then the snowball is too big to stop. Um, I don't believe that as a painter, we're better at one subject or another. Please work on removing that from your beliefs because if I dare to say, I am bold in saying this but it's incorrect. It's incorrect. We're not better at still lives and worse at portraits. We're putting ourselves um, uh, ghostly obstacles. Is it more challenging to find value on the bone structure? Yes. Take on that challenge. If you think you suck at portraits, do more portraits. Um, it's not the subject that is the issue. Is what it's the issue, it's our practice on a subject, which is completely different. So portraits are confronting because the value, it's much more complex and nuanced. There's going to be a lot of shifting on a portrait. Um, it's not going to be an apple or something round where you can see the rules of the light reflecting on it and the shadows. There's light and dark in very shifts in very small places, but it is not more difficult. We just need to work more on it. Um, so I think, yeah, I think I wanted to say that. It's something that I will not say again in a session. Um, and I respect, because I respect that feeling. That feeling is like, oh my gosh, portrait. I know. I think this week it happened. It happened. I'm not good with portraits. I always get stuck. I'm gonna do this uh, Band-Aid. I think it's kind of cool. And I have a witness in this group that I did not address any of this. Why do we feel it's more difficult to make portraits? Because it's hard as it is to get to paint. You don't want anyone turning the tables on you and saying, well, it's not hard. It's because you haven't done it enough. Who wants that? Who wants to be told that when it's hard enough to make time to drive to a place? Um, all the hurdles that we have to jump over just to be present. I have so much respect for that. It's hard enough to do that. And it's becoming harder, you guys. It's becoming harder to make time for something that feels so good. Um, so you wouldn't want someone telling you, no, it's not the subject's fault. It's your fault. I would never go back to that class. Well, I'm going to apply this to myself. I don't like to do ears. Okay. Do I think ears are more difficult? No, I simply don't like them. I built over the years, and thanks to this exchange in the sessions, this idea that subjects are not difficult. It's the practice of them that feels like a mountain to climb. Um, Same with, and I applied that to myself with the ears. I don't think they're more difficult. They're just boring. I don't know. Maybe I need to change that. It's just an appendix, and they're important. Okay. Yeah, I think that's cute. It just gives this sort of like conceptual mystery. Why does he have the hands taped? And in that particular order, it's not a ring. That's why I like this image. Did he cut himself? Like when? Gardening? Cooking? I don't know. It's such a mystery. Maybe gardening. I like to think of these things. It's like sitting at a cafe and looking at someone and imagining their life, based on what they're wearing. I love to do that. It's so entertaining. Is it right? No. Do I do it? Yes. I just, yeah, imagine what they do. I don't know. Okay, the fingers are too thin. Oh, okay. Thank you. Yes. Um, I know that, and I'm going to mention of that later. So some of the things that happen, it's that we made hands too small. I made the hands too small. I made the hands too small. All right, what happens with, we talked about it on Tuesday actually, that we have a tendency of making the eyes of a portrait too tiny sometimes, and that it helps to exaggerate the misproportion, if I can use that, of the eyes. But it happens with the hands. We tend to make hands too small, and I just did it. And I just realized of that now. So I am going to tackle this because it makes such a huge difference. Such a huge difference. I'm gonna try to make that. Okay, I'm gonna mess this up. We need to learn not to be protective or attach rather. It's a good non-attachment practice to our work. And I'm gonna break boundaries here. I need to at least a few things. It doesn't, the thing is that sometimes we think like we have to create something from scratch when we don't. It just, it always amazes me, like, okay, let's say I'm finding myself in this conundrum. The hands are too small. And then I feel overwhelmed by that feeling. I just see it now. And I've learned to embrace the fact that if I see something now, it's not because I'm not good at catching it earlier. It's because the painting is developing so much that it's allowing me to discover things that were not visible to my eye before. I try to be kind to myself in that sense and not blame myself for not catching it earlier. And it's it's done wonders for me in order to keep on painting. So I highly recommend that practice. Um, and then the truth is that in my head, it's always felt like, okay, I need to redo the hands or the eyes. And I imagine that's going to take the same amount of time that it took to do it in the first place. So there's a sense of like despair, like now that I've achieved this, I have to do it again. There's almost like you lose, there's something that feels robbed, like, oh my gosh. But in my experience, it takes 5% of the time that it took to do. So that's where I'm at. I'm glad that it's happening. And I'm gonna work on it. This thumb is definitely more out there, higher, much higher. All right. Also, um, as a general advice, I mention this all the time, don't spend too much time in one area. So now I have this, and I could be easily obsessed with this, and then not move forward until I get something that satisfies me. But I'm not gonna go there. Just gonna do a little bit of work. This needs to be much lighter. Oh yeah, this bone, the bone of the wrist. Oh my gosh, I'm discovering so much. Okay. I'm going for it because I know that the little pieces. So here is the balance. The balance is knowing that I see it, but not feeling attached to getting a result about it that makes me frustrated. Makes me frustrated, yes. Okay, because I still want to leave things imperfect. So I am working on it, but I'm not going to polish it to the point where, this. Okay, this is too light. I'm stippling. I'm stippling like tap, tap, tap. I'm not using much paint. I'm blending with my finger. I only use the mixture of the oil and the solvent to rinse. The solvent, two functions, to rinse and to dissolve. Oops. I don't know if I mentioned that, but rinsing is one of them. And then diluting, it's another one, which is different function. Okay, this thumb, it's so long. I need to shorten the hand a little bit. Okay. Slightly, but it's not big enough. Oh, this finger goes further out. My gosh. I chopped the finger shorter. All right, got it. I got it. It's like this is like finding the seven differences in, when you have another when we used to entertain ourselves with this puzzles and crosswords and stuff like that. Um, we didn't need anyone. And I used to love to find the seven differences or whatever amount of differences. Well, painting is that. It's that skill that we're putting in practice. We're putting in practice the skill of finding what's different between your painting and the subject. And well, the challenge is that on the paper, on those exercises, we just had to circle the difference. Well, in painting, you actually have to change it. Wah, wah. Okay, I know the issue. It's that there is a finger underneath. So yeah, that helped tremendously. Oh, okay. So I'm gonna spend no, the last minute. Okay, I have 1 minute anyhow. I'm gonna conclude by saying that I can't wait to hear your feedback and also that you don't have to say anything if you have to leave and that you don't have to open cameras or not or voices or anything like that. Just want to make sure and double check even as we talk. And also that I will mention it as well, but I want to prioritize your work to be in the gallery. So if you're working on this piece or if you've done work on this piece, I want to offer you first the ability to feature it there for sale. It's super easy. You can do it on your own, but you guys are always first. And finally, my gratitude for being supporters and also um, my hope that I was able to correspond to your support with some value with this session. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.